recon brute forcing. The other way, what you can also do is that the other thing what you can also do is that let's say um, you have a bunch of IP addresses. You have a bunch of IP addresses like this ones, okay? And you let's say you have a keywords, like you have a dictionary of use. Let me what I will do is that let me just figure out. Okay. So what other thing can be done is that let's say I have as an attacker, I have a list of IP addresses for example. Rather than a domain, let's say I have the list of IP addresses and I want to figure out what's the domain behind that. Okay. So what we can definitely do is, let's say if I do ns lookup for 74 dot this one, definitely this will give me the result of google.com for example. Okay. And now the thing is that if I do something like, let's say something like not valid, what I will give is something, I will get a flag which is called as annex domain. So this is something I was trying to kind of show that to you. So when there will be some kind of like a let's say PTR record, for example, a PTR record reversal, where the attacker is trying to figure out a domain name behind the IP address. In that case, what you will be doing, what you will be kind of seeing is what they will kind of get an alert is that the valid IP address will definitely give them the result, but a non-valid IP address will give them a flag which is called as annex domain. Okay, so what I can do is that let's say I go over here and continue without saving, and let's say I do ns lookup for this, the valid IP, I get this thing, and let's say the non-valid IP, I get annex domain. This is how the things will look like. Okay. So what you see is that the PTR record was executed by the attacker. Just imagine that the attacker did that. They were trying to figure out the block. They were trying to figure out the subdomains, the valid subdomains, or they were trying to figure out the valid IP address, for example. So the valid IP address, when it did a dictionary attack on this IP address, they got a valid domain. Okay, but here for this IP address which are not valid, they got a flag known as annex domain. Okay. So the same thing that what we can do is that we can figure out that from here. Okay. So what we do is that from here we see that, okay, there was no such name for the PTR record for this one. And let me just quickly see if annex domain also, okay, the annex domain is not showing up for here. Okay. But this is something kind of a flag that will be kind of returned by the ns lookup, from where the attacker will be able to figure out if that IP address is like valid or not. Okay, for example. Okay, so or like valid or not, or maybe like if there any kind of a blog or any kind of URL behind that IP address, so they will get a flag of annex domain for a non-valid IP address and not annex domain flag for a valid IP address over here. Okay, so that's all for like recon activity. Now let's me quickly go to the next part. So that was one of the things, like how we can kind of, as a security professional, we should know how the attacker will kind of do a DNS brute forcing. This is one of the basic script by which they will be kind of initiating those attacks. And as a security professional, how we can kind of detect those kind of attacks. Okay. So I think this is kind of, this was interesting and kind of easy to understand how to kind of initiate the attack and how to kind of detect the attack. Okay. Now let me see what are different other ways to kind of do that. So let me just quickly go to my notes and okay, just give me 1 second, guys. I just want to take like if there's any other thing on the recon activity that I want to discuss. Okay, now the third thing, the last thing that I want to discuss about the recon activity, which will actually work in most of the scenario. What you can do is that, let me just stop this first. This has been stopped. And now the other way by which you can detect recon activity is by setting up honeypots. Okay, and by honeypots I basically mean is that you will be kind of setting up non-valid domains. Like let's say you set up a non-valid domain, like you know that this is a non-valid domain, but you set up this domain as a valid one. For an example, let's say you hosted cat.google.com, let's say you hosted let's say data.google.com, for example. Okay, so cat.google.com and data.google.com, maybe you know that, okay, these all terms will come out in the dictionary attack. If someone is kind of performing dictionary attack, they will definitely, that dictionary will have this kind of keywords like cat or google.com or data.google.com, for example. And what you do is that you set up an alert that whenever someone tries to kind of perform a DNS query response for this kind of domains only, like data.google.com and cat.google.com, you get an alert. Okay, so you set up an alert to stop that. Okay, if someone tries to kind of perform a DNS query response for this domain, you get an alert. So what you do is that now, rather than kind of depending upon like detecting DNS recon activity via this method, which will have a lot of false positive and true positive alerts, you can just like create a blacklist of domains like cat.google.com and data.google.com. And in most of the scenario, what will happen is that the attacker, when they are trying to kind of brute force on like they're trying to figure out multiple like subdomains from a dictionary. So definitely there will be a hit for, let's say, data.google.com, and you will quickly know that, okay, that there is some kind of recon activity getting performed by the external attacker or even the insider attacker. Okay, so even if the insider attacker, let's say, is trying to kind of perform any kind of recon activity, or let's say the person computer has been kind of compromised by malware, and the malware is trying to do some brute forcing, you will quickly get an alert that, okay, there is some kind of recon activity happening by someone. Okay, so these are the 3 steps by which you can kind of detect those kind of recon activity, okay, in place, being as a security professionals. Okay, now I hope this was easy to understand how to detect the recon activity. If there's any question, just feel free to interrupt, or if else, I will go to the next topic. So like now, let me quickly figure out what's the next topic in the kit. Okay, and let's give me just guys 2 minutes break. I'll just quickly grab some water. Okay, guys, let's resume our discussion. Let me just quickly see my notes. What else I need to kind of figure out? Okay, so when I was kind of discussing about this one, where this slide, where I was kind of where I asked you guys, okay, what's the malicious entry over here? So one of the entry was 8.8.8.8. Now the thing is that one of the things you guys might be asking is that what are the scenarios, what are the avenues from where I can kind of get this kind of logs? Okay, so this kind of logs you can get from multiple scenarios. Let's say from the, let's say one of the way will be to kind of, let's say, firewall logs, for an example. So firewall logs will actually kind of, if the firewall is kind of recording a DNS query that has been made, so definitely that one of the way by which what you can do is that you can kind of set something that, okay, firewall forward all the DNS logs traffic to your SIEM tools of your choice. My choice will always be the Splunk tool, but let's say the SIEM tools, and that is one of the avenue. The other way can be is that, let's say, the client or the company is kind of maintaining the netflow logs. So that's where the netflow logs will say that, okay, this is the source IP address, the destination IP address is 8.8.8, and the the destination DNS port was 53, for an example. And this will tell you that there was a DNS query that was made to 8.8.8.8. And this is again, like, what you can do is that you can just forward that to your SIEM tools of your choice, and from the SIEM tools you can figure out, okay, what were the queries. So my objective over here is to kind of